This is MSO News Sports. I'm Rick Moore, and from the mayor's office, we're talking now with Gloucester Mayor Greg Verga. Mr. Mayor, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. Glad to be here.
Well, you've had a lot of announcements coming out of your office recently, and it's mostly good news concerning help for various organizations. We'll get to that. But you also had something out publicly. There was a press release concerning some meetings coming up, including a wildfire protection plan open house. Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. So to cut to the chase, it is Thursday, this Thursday, I guess day after tomorrow, 6 to 8 here at City Hall up in the auditorium. It's the Cape Ann Community Wildfire Protection Plan open house. So this goes back to, remember, the summer before last, all the fires we had. And when we had the state fire people come in to help us, they offered this this opportunity to us to help us have a plan. So going forward, we'd be in much better shape. And so we took them up on the offer. Chief's been meeting with, and Joe Cahill, my CEO, have been meeting with the town managers around us, as well as other private landowners or big landowners or trusts that own land, because we're all in it together, and coming up with a comprehensive plan to address this going forward. You know, one of the things that they'll be looking at is even just the paths that the fire roads that have gotten overgrown over the years. So it's just simple things like that to clear the paths so you can get through with apparatus if needed, and clear out other debris to take out basically the accelerants that are on the ground. And I think it's a good thing. So people can come tomorrow, Thursday, day after tomorrow, to hear what's going on, and hopefully we'll move forward, and this will be a good community regional thing for us. And the fact is, a lot of the funding, pretty much all the funding, is coming from state and not coming out of the pockets of the cities and towns.
I know Chief Eric Smith, the fire chief, has mentioned several times in interviews how much woodland there is on Cape Ann and how much of that is dry undergrowth just sitting underground and so on. And he's mentioned several times that it's a bona fide danger.
Yes, yeah, and as we saw, you know, a couple of years ago, it can happen, and it can spread fast, and it can linger for a long time. So this is just an ounce of prevention here, and hopefully we'll get that pound of cure going forward.
And of course, nationally, we're seeing it more and more in various places. So yeah, good idea. Okay. Next thing, I had to look up the word visioning, comprehensive plan visioning workshop. I had to look that up, and maybe you can tell me about that.
So the comprehensive plan, also known as the master plan, is something we've been talking about since before I got elected over 2 years ago, that the city's current master plan, Plan 2000, by its very name, is outdated. You know, it's over 2 decades old, 2.5 decades old. So there was a definite need, sort of some of the pushback we got when the city attempted some zoning changes early on in my term, was we really should have a master plan before we start doing things like this. So I agree, and that's why we got kicked off the comprehensive planning initiative. So we had over 3,000 participants at meetings in a box, through the online surveys to date, and so it's been a pretty good turnout, you know, virtually and in person over the last several months, and we want to keep that momentum going. So this is the opportunity to start writing out the vision and goals for the city for the next decade or so. And I would hope that whoever's in this seat 10 years from now will be starting on the next one. We can't let it go for an extra decade, because things change so swiftly in today's technology age.
Without getting specific, are there common threads among the communication that you've gotten?
Yeah, I mean, it's the usual things. You know, people are concerned about development. They're concerned about, you know, our roads, and you know, it's the usual things that you hear are the ones that we're hearing, you know, as it relates to what we need to look at going forward. But this is, you know, it's the comprehensive plan. So it's everything from the roads to our water infrastructure to you know, our schools, how city government's going to run. So we've got a lot to digest here, and you know, we don't have to rush this. This is not. There's no deadline on this, you know, and I'm not saying we're going to let it linger for the next, you know, 24 months, but we want to make sure we get it right, because this is going to be the blueprint for us moving forward.
What's the organizational structure of something like this?
The organization, well, it's going through our community development department, actually through the planning board, and we've hired a consultant to help lead us through it. So some of the comments that we got since we hired the consultant or talked about hiring the consultant was, why don't we have someone locally do this? Why do we need to keep hiring consultants? Well, I'd rather have someone who's done this in the real world as opposed to someone's going to, call up a YouTube video of how to do a comprehensive plan. And sometimes you have to seek professionals. Like if you're going to build an addition to your house and you've never done it before, you might want to have a real contractor come in and do it. So someone who does this for a living was the smart way to go. And people will have an outside view of, they look at what other communities have done. It can't just be a locally based on opinion. So I think it was a smart thing to hire the consultant. And we have final say over it. Not me, the mayor, us, the government, but the residents have final say over what gets produced.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the other good news coming out of the mayor's office recently is the ARPA funding, which I think maybe you could review a little bit what that means and what the city is doing with it.
Sure. So you recall that the city received about $21.5 million through ARPA funds long before I was mayor. I think it was around 21 or so, maybe late 2020. And the first thing we did is set aside $10 million for our sewer plant, wastewater treatment plant, which is, as we've talked about before, probably the biggest thing that this city is going to be dealing with ever. And so $10 million on a $200 million bill is just a small bit of it, but we did put, 20 of the 21 million, 10 million towards that, put 3 million towards roads way back when. But more recently, we started working, finalizing the community initiatives from some of our partners out there. And you saw a press release with the GMGI got their first half of their grant. The Open Door got theirs. Other places like Action will be getting some. And I don't have the full list in front of me, but it's about $1 million, $900,000 going to some of our community partners. So stay tuned. There'll be more releases on those specifics in the coming weeks. But the other things we're looking to spend money on, the big one in my eyes is the Legion, the American Legion building. Anybody who drives by it sees it's in terrible condition, but it's not just a paint job. This is we want to make sure we do it right. So we have a engineering firm writing up some plans for that. It's about a $2 million project. Thankfully, we do have the funding in ARPA to fix any of the rotted wood, do issues with drainage, and get the thing painted so it looks sharp and is, it's right there at the gateway to the city. Some of the other things, playgrounds at Beaman and Plum Cove School. Plum Cove School, they got funding through the state that went directly to the school department. We're looking to put some funds in from ARPA to put in the rubberized surfaces that are required, money to implement the harbor plan once that gets approved by the state. Over the last several months, we've done things like the $1.5 million to the Affordable Housing Trust. We've got wayfinding that'll be signage, unified signage around the city. Right now, we've got remnants of all the previous mayors, what they had put forward, which kind of don't match. So we're looking to revise all of it. So it's one unified look, directing people from the waterfront to Main Street and back and forth and to all the other areas in town. So we were very fortunate. That was a one-time deal from the federal government, that $21 million we got. And we have taken our time and we're going to spend it wisely and put it to the best use. And it sounded like a broken record, but what will do the most good for the most people over the most time? That's what my mantra has been and will be.
I don't know if this is related or not, but I think there's an article in today's Gloucester Times about free cash in the city.
Yes, so free cash, yeah, that's another big one. So the so-called free cash is basically after all of the books are balanced, the state certifies that you have X amount of money left over. And what they, it's just the street name. It's called free cash. It's not free, it's not really cash, but it's about $4.1 million, something like that. But under Sapathia's administration, they had set up a procedure. They created stabilization accounts, things for road work, for general stabilization, for buildings. We have been sticking to that for the last 2 years that I've been dealing with the free cash, plugging it into those categories. And then this unrestricted free cash that we can do whatever we want with. but typically it's for one-time use. It's not used for hiring people. It's not used for salaries because you don't know from year to year what you have. That is the result of, I would say, very conservative budgeting over the last several years. This year, because things are not as rosy as they had been over the last few years, because the state revenue is being down, we're going to be a little less conservative in budgeting, which we know will result in less free cash this time next year. But we don't want to starve our departments and our residents knowing that we're going to have free cash at the end of this time next year. So it's not free, it's not cash, but it certainly is helpful to have. And as I mentioned earlier about the $206 million sewer plant, that it is really necessary that we have those stabilizations in place to raid if needed. We're going to be seeking grants. We have low interest loans we're in the pipeline for this project. But if we don't get significant grants, we can't put the whole cost on the ratepayer. So those stabilization funds are there for a rainy day. And once we've moved along in construction on that sewer plant, it's going to be a typhoon out there.
Okay, we'll stay tuned for that. Anything else you want to mention, Mr. Mayor?
No, I would just say that, we appreciate the support we get from people, the constructive criticism, anything that people would like to bring to our attention. Please call our office or email mayor@gloucester-ma.gov. Facebook is not the place to go, especially not on the mayor's Facebook page. If you go into one of these other Facebook group pages, not the best place to just bury your comment or your post because we may not see it. So if something is, you have good news, bad news, indifferent news, reach out directly to us and we will address it.